What is up, folks? Welcome to another week of the High Tech Podcast. My name is Josh Schwartz. I am one of the hosts of the High Tech Podcast, joined by the other host, because I said one. That means there's more than just one. Although that would be funny if I said I'm one of the hosts and I'm just the only host. Like, that would be... Anyway.
Welcome to Me, Myself, and I.
Yeah, anyway. I'm joined with the other host, Will Illingworth. How you doing, Will? What's up, man?
Pretty good, dude.
Yeah.
Another day, another paradise. We're doing it.
Another good week. If you will. Yeah, you know. Last week at this time we were at a Phillies game.
That was a good time.
It's a different vibe tonight, but it's...
No fanatic here this week, sadly.
Yeah, no fanatics.
Just silly old Will. Silly old Willie. Oh, I don't.
Nope, I don't like that at all. There's a reason in all the years we've been friends, none of us or our friend group have called you that I know of.
I honestly, in the midst of the lot of you, with varying ranges of humor, I'm thankful that none of you have ever tried. Honestly, I don't think any of you have ever tried to call me anything other than Will or William.
We've called you a lot of things, but they've never been versions of your name. They're usually just things we say behind your back.
Now, I do gotta ask you. I gotta ask you this, which I love that. Say them all day. Say them to my face. Say them to my back. Wherever you want to say them, I don't mind. I gotta ask you this.
Okay.
We do call you Swartz in our social group.
Yes,
so much
do.
so that at times I'll call you Josh in front of Alex, and he's like, "Who's that?"
Yes, yeah.
So there are examples, right, of like the last name thing, and it was big in college, all of us, but no one. Is it just because my last name's so big? Like, no one calls me Illingworth.
Oh, nobody calls you Illingworth?
Am I not cool enough?
I don't think you have
too long.
I don't think you have a last name that's conducive to that. I mean, I don't and it's also because I think it's like you say Will, you know, and it's like it just happens, you know.
It's easy.
You say, "What's up, Illingworth?" Like that's a mouthful to get out every time you say. I also think there's a factor here, okay? Most of us, I can't speak to all of your friend group, but most of us in your friend group don't really have a lot of other Wills in our life.
Fair.
And I think that's also part of it. Like, I don't really know a lot of Wills. I maybe know one or two of them, but you are as we've termed it at work now. This was a joke at work the other day. And listeners, tell us if this is how you view it. You're my primary Will. We call them primaries at work. Like we were having this conversation at work the other day.
That's great.
Where like, who's your primary person with that name? You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, and we laughed because Robin was like, well, obviously Josh isn't my primary Josh, but she said it like apologetically, and like Drew and I, who is another coworker of mine, listeners, were kind of like, I mean, that makes sense. He's your husband, you know. Like I feel he should be your primary. You know. I
mean, you know, it just depends on the day.
But yeah, I don't think I have a lot of Wills. I think that's part of it. The history.
Okay.
So, listeners, I know you're very curious about this. So, here it goes. Sit down around the fire.
We got to keep Sam interested.
Yeah,
you know, she might hold on for those 6 minutes. If we tell
we'll
more
see what
stories,
happens.
So.
Yeah, get your fire mugs out. You know, we really need those merchandise. Get your fire mugs out and just kind of listen. So, my first name is common for I think the millennial generation, like Josh.
Sure. Josh
is it's a name with a lot of long history in other generations as well. But I feel like growing up there were always other Joshes. So I think that's why I became Swartz, right? Like like our friend group growing up there was another Josh. His name was his last name was Kime. And so for some reason we didn't call him Kime though, because we were a bunch of white kids from suburbia. We called him J-Kiz. Because we thought that was fun, and that kind of stuck.
Right.
But everybody called me Swartz. And so I think that's just kind of...
He could have been Josh, but he got J-Kiz, and you were Swartz.
Yeah. And in college, you guys called me Josh early on, I think, but there were a lot of other Joshes at college. So, like, eventually...
two Joshes at least in, like, our dining table.
Yeah, in our dining table, and in our dorm, we had another Josh. Yeah. So, and so I think that was part of it. In college, eventually, there were also other Joshes. So, like, that's why I got Swartz. And because of that, that just kind of stuck with those groups of friends who are my bigger group of friends. So they often call me Swartz. There's a lot of other people who don't call me Swartz. You guys just don't interact with them nearly as much.
Well,
so
that's their loss.
That's like one of our friends, Allie, listeners. She also works with me. She thought it was very weird when she came to work and people were calling me Josh, because that is what people call me at work. Nobody calls me Sports at work.
Even though at one time there was like 3 Joshes in your office,
well, there were
right?
2. Okay, so here's another fun story. This is like a total divergence, listeners, but you can find out some more information. There used to be another coworker of mine named Josh, but there was a determination when this happened. We both talked. We determined that he shall be called Joshua, and I shall be called Josh. That was the running joke.
That was the acceptance.
We used to joke we were going to create anarchy, because literally our names in all of our softwares were that as well. Like, he was Joshua and I was Josh. We joked we were going to create anarchy by changing them around one day and just see what happened. Like, see.
All the office just falls apart.
Anyway, so I think that's it, man. I just think, I do think your name's a little long for a last name,
Hey, Illingworth.
Yeah, I don't think that's not screamable in the Philly streets, but I think it's
It doesn't have a zing,
Yeah.
It needs some zest. Like Swartz. Like, oh yeah, Swartz, what's up, dude?
Yeah.
That just, it hits. Yeah. Hey, Illingworth. Nope.
Exactly. See?
Nope. It's a dud.
No. When you say your last name, I feel like I should be in a village in England and be like, King Illingworth, like that type of vibe.
Lord Illingworth.
Yes, which, listeners, fun fact, Will has a village that he has never visited.
Not yet. Have not yet visited.
Have not yet visited. So, actually, I'll put this out there. If you're listening to the podcast and you live in, what village is it?
The village of Illingworth.
It's the village of Illingworth? Okay.
Countryside of England.
If you're listening to this podcast and you live in the village of Illingworth, please message the podcast at inbox@hightechpod.us and let us know, because that would be amazing.
Yes.
So, anyway. On that note, before we jump into our topic, and actually diverge from this weird history of names, because, when people are tired during the day, they think, I know what'll wake me up. 2 white guys talking about their names. That's fun. Let's talk about that. No, real quick, just a reminder, the High Tech Podcast, you can find us on the interwebs. That's right, we are there. Not only does Will have a village, we also are on the internet. No. So you can find us at all socials, at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. Make sure to check them out. Follow, like, subscribe, hit the bell, do things. Please let us know you're there. We've gained a few subscribers on YouTube and across our podcast platforms and LinkedIn as well. We always love when people follow us there as well. Make sure to follow the podcast. We love hearing from you and we love connecting with you. As I mentioned earlier, if you'd like to reach out to us, talk to us on the podcast, you can email us at inbox@hightechpod.us if you'd like to be on the podcast. You'd like to share that you're from the village Illingworth. You'd like to share that you live in a village called the Village of Swartz. I don't think it exists, but if it does, that would be sick. Please let us know by emailing us at inbox@hightechpod.us. And then also a reminder, we have a website. Every episode page that goes on that website has resources, links to the tools we talk about, fun links to the games we create. For instance, when we created a Tanks game on Rosebud a few episodes ago, there is a link that you can play that travesty of a game that I created. You can go find that at hightechpod.us on our website. So make sure to also go check that out. Woo! Okay, so we talked about our names. We've talked about countries. We've talked about how to find us. We've covered so many things. I think it's almost time to stop the podcast. But I'm just joking.
And click.
Click. No. We wanted to talk this week about the value of slowing down. And what we mean by that is, listen, we're a tech podcast. We talk a lot about tech. And the tech world and a lot of the worlds we all work in, I think, move at a very fast pace. And the idea of slowing down is considered many times inefficient, and sometimes lazy. Like, it's considered slowing down is considered lazy, or it's considered you're not multitasking enough, which is a whole other story of why that's not a thing. But it's slowing down is not considered as a positive. And so we want to talk about how slowing down can actually be a valuable thing in this kind of tech-driven world that we live in. So to jump into that, though, Will, I think you have a little bit of an experience with this, of where slowing down has not been a good thing. So, like, where have you seen this not slowing down happen in your experience that it's kind of caused you to think slowing down is actually a valuable thing in the world we're in today?
Well, one of the first pieces one of the ways that this topic came to me was like, we live in this tech world. We live in all this, like my corporate job. Everything I have to do is like now, go, do. And there are times where it's just super stressful for me. It can be super stressful for, colleagues and stuff. But it also sometimes moving fast or getting so many things done can reduce quality. And so like I've just been thinking on it in general, but I did a job change, right? I moved positions at my current company. So I actually didn't leave, which is great. I was able to switch from HR over to customer education. And what's cool for me is I know so much, about the learning systems already and about the people I'm working with. Like I didn't have to change jobs and change everything where like I know nothing. I'm starting from scratch. But at the same time, I know nothing about customer education and how we educate our customers at my day job. So I'm stuck, right? I have all this knowledge and yet I can do nothing. And what that means is when I'm told to do something or I'm given, a ticket or something like that, I start at stop. Like I don't even have to slow down necessarily. It's like, okay, we'll do this. I'm like, all right, well, how do I want to do this? How does this need to be done? What are the requirements for doing this? What are the parameters? Who needs to be involved? How do I write like before I can complete a ticket, I'm asking myself 10 questions. And it's actually been kind of fun, right? It's been good to kind of slow down and take the time to do it because many of my other team members are in the flow. They're used to it. They're functioning normally within this world. And so they are, closing 6 tickets a day and dealing with all this, random stuff all over the place and able to, speak to how these things work and why we need to do this. And they just have the answer to, a specific question. And that's great for them. But like, I am actually enjoying the slow process of like, and actually have already found a few ways where it's been helpful to like step into something everyone else seems to know, but then I step in and I'm like, well, but why are we doing it this way? And not necessarily in a negative, but like if the way we're doing this involves a spreadsheet with 26 columns, right? And it takes so much time to get through all the columns and each one's a manual step. Like I'm asking the question, well, which of those steps can we automate? Which can we make better? Which can we move faster? So, it's not necessarily like I'm looking at this problem and going, oh, the answer, Josh, is to do everything slower. Like, that's not the answer. It's like taking time to slow down, reflect, ask the questions, and then maybe hopefully make a plan, but then take action, right? Like starting from a place where we have more information, we've considered more options, and then going for resolution. I'm finding actually when I can keep myself in that frame of mind, my stress level goes way down because I want to do all of it. If I've got 10 tickets, I want to get all 10 tickets done.
Yeah.
But it's not practical necessarily to always get everything done right away. And I don't always have the answers. So there are tickets that have to sit for a few days while I'm getting the information, while I'm coordinating with my stakeholders, while I'm learning something new. And it's been a little painful. It's been tough. But I think that what that's bringing to me is a lot of personal development. And what I can bring to then the team is like process development and systems development to ensure that we don't have to kind of be taken over by this tyranny of now, but we can work on things proactively and in a structured way. It's really helped me go through this all these changes a lot more, but I'm slowing down. I am naturally slower right now, and it's like it's tough. It's hard to be comfortable with that because we have so much to do, and you know it. How many tasks you accomplish in a day, a month, a year? There's too much work. So how to say slow down feels counterintuitive, but it's like the only way I can get through this moment to get faster with everything else long term.
Yeah, no, I get that, right, and being as somebody who fits in that realm of liking to get things done, and a lot of my skills so positively and detrimentally sometimes are in the executing side of doing things, right? So I get that. It's funny you're talking about the story, and it's making me think of my summer. where like I was in a similar scenario as you. Not exactly. Like I left the organization I was at and went to another organization, and then ended up bouncing back to the last organization because I was like, turns out I'd rather be back. And there were a lot of factors for that. But I remember this kind of similar experience, right, where you're slower at dealing with stuff because you're newer, but you're also seeing a different team and the way they do things.
Yeah.
And it does give you, like, this is why I love bringing new people into the team at times, because it can kind of give you the advantage of I like using their time when they're still learning how things work to also have them give feedback back of, like, what they're seeing, right? And that's because I want to slow down with that team member in the beginning, because I want to get their... I want to use that as a good kind of sounding board to figure out what we're doing on the team. But, like, for me, this is a similar experience of the summer, right, where I would see what we were doing and ask why we're doing it, right? And not everything I was saying we shouldn't do or I had problems with. I know it becomes as a surprise to you, Will, that I had strong opinions about the way that they were doing their work. That it shouldn't have been done that way, that I was right about all of those things. I'm definitely not. I'm wrong in many areas. But one of the things that was interesting that I started noticing over time, and honestly was a contributor to why I ended up leaving, was I started noticing this culture of we need to move quickly on everything, but we can't stop to ask what's most important to move on.
Oh my
right?
gosh, yes.
So like we have to just do what we're told at that moment. And so like a perfect example of this would be we were working on courses and we had to Spanish translate for those courses.
Yep.
So they've been trying to do this for months, like before I had gotten there. Like this was something they had been trying to do, but they had been told to stop and then start up again. And then all of a sudden we've all had this. Somebody somewhere several steps up high enough went, well, now I care about this again. I'd like it done tomorrow, even though there's other work already scheduled now. So like, yeah, but you can't stop that other work. And it was this roundabout thing where like stuff just didn't get done because nobody was being given the time to pause and ask the right questions and reflect on, okay, well, how much do we need resource-wise to get this done? Who's going to do... like, nobody can answer the question of, like, who's actually going to check these... who's going to do the translation work? And do they have enough time? When can they do it? And, like, when you would ask those questions, they're like, well, we'll get the answers to those eventually. Just start doing it now. We're like, but doing what now? Like, we don't... We don't know.
None of us can translate.
Like we don't know what we're supposed to be doing yet, right? Yeah. And nobody even knew the number of courses we were looking at. There was debate over which courses were which, and nobody was given the time to slow down and do. They just wanted to see something happening, right? And I was looking at this from the outside, going, the last team I came from, we could have finished this in 14 weeks, because we would have at least taken. Okay, I'll give extra weeks to this. Okay, 20 weeks. Because we would have taken 6 weeks to figure out what was going to happen over those 14 weeks. Then we would have acted on the plan we came up with to do over those 14 weeks. And we wouldn't have gotten all things done, right? Like, I remember trying to push to be like, well, can we prioritize certain things over other things? And it was like, no, we have to do all of it. It's like, well, we can't do all of it. Nobody has time to do all of it. Like, there's not enough hands. There's not enough time. And it was like, well, we want to get it done in this many weeks. Well, why? Because that's the amount of weeks we want to get it done in. There was never like a evaluation of work. Like nobody slowed down to even ask why we were doing this. Right. Like nobody, when I would finally get to dig into things, people didn't even know who actually wanted this. Like there were leaders above my boss who were saying, why are you working on this? Like nobody, because we were moving so quickly. And so what I started to notice was this culture of just constantly trying to be the most efficient, but in the effort of being the quickest and most efficient, they were spending so much energy on redoing things or making mistakes that could have been avoided or pausing things mid-project because they didn't have enough workload to do it because this one project just stopped while this other one started, and it was constant starting and stopping of projects because no one carefully planned out how these were all going to coordinate together, right? Or nobody reflected on how are we going to do this. No one took time to reflect on how successful projects actually were, or how they were doing. Like it was just, from my perspective, which is probably not entirely fair, it was a culture of constant back and forth. And I think the last story I'll share about this is an example that came to my mind when Will and I were talking about this. This is actually at the organization I'm currently at. And this is no detriment to people at that organization. But we have, like, Will, I don't know if you've experienced this at other places. I know you have. I'm just leading the question. You ever had that situation where it's like, there's so many tech projects that, like, none of them actually ever get done? Like, you know what I mean? Where it's like we've been implementing the same softwares for 6 years because nobody's actually finished implementing them. You know what I mean? Like that vibe.
Yes.
I remember it was this infamous meeting called the Tech Prioritization Meeting. And we were supposed to be prioritizing the projects we were going to do for that year. But here's the problem. Nobody wanted to slow down and just pick one to start with.
Right.
And reflect on what was the most important one.
Right.
And so because of that, we ended up with a list of like 11 projects. You want to know how many of those are actually done? Like one. Like there was this.
And when was this?
2.5 years ago, probably, give or take.
That story checks out.
Right?
Yeah,
So like, again, why it's important to slow down and reflect is because it gives us time to ask the right questions. And people view that moment of slowing down, I think, as laziness or you're not adaptable or you're not efficient. But at the end of the day, that time to slow down and ask the right questions ends up paying off later. And I would argue I see more and more organizations, teams, and people who want to do everything at once or want to keep moving and constantly doing end up being the ones who burn out much quicker and ends up also being the ones who do less at the end of the day. Because they're not taking that time to slow down and also reflect on what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. Like that's my take on some of this, right? So,
well, and so in our stories, you can see the problems and like the frustrations we might be pressed up against. But this simple message is to reflect, and I think there's kind of an encouragement, or I hope to encourage folks to say it's okay to do this, like. The idea of getting all 11 of those projects done is good, right? From your tech prioritization thing. Let's integrate or let's onboard or let's change these 11 tools. That is a great thing. Like you're saying, in what order, in what fashion, which one's like that the prioritization and the plan for it all is the most important part. But it's like if you have to do all 11 and you have to do them in a year, then you have to increase your workforce because the existing bodies is not sufficient. But then there's always contingencies, like certain things may not, you may have to do one tool before you do the other tool. That's always a real problem. But if you can't increase your workforce, then you cannot do all 11 in 1 year. And I think that's one of those things where we definitely suffer generally with leadership that does not take that thought into consideration. They let the company has to take all these big steps. The institution has to take all these big steps this year. Let's go do it. Make it happen. They have that attitude. Make it happen. It's like if anybody else would take the moment to reflect and consider how it has to get done, they'd realize that you're actually setting everyone else up for failure. And I just, I've suffered on the end of that. I love that this message hopefully is to give folks the encouragement to, like, I enjoy making my coffee as a pour over every week because it is time where I don't do something else. It is time where my goal is to make my coffee, and I do think I might process my day or what's happened this week, but I'm not making my coffee and checking my email. I'm not making my coffee and playing a video game. I'm not making my coffee and mowing the lawn. I'm making my coffee. And I think that that's a beautiful and a good thing to consider. Josh and I are #1 advocates for automation, efficiency, using the right tools to get the right job done. So yeah, we can do and we can operate at that fast pace, but it's not sustainable if you don't have the workforce to keep that up at scope. And that's where I think one of the last pieces for me on this like overall message is if you take that time, depending on where you're standing currently when you're dealing with the issue, if you take that time, you can either reflect, slow down, and zoom in and get to the most important parts of the most specific thing, or you can stop and breathe and step back and look at the forest and see the 30,000 foot view and consider the larger implications. Like, I think that moment to stop actually makes you more efficient, because you're going to either do better because you have the broader picture in mind, or you're going to do better because you have the specifics you need to accomplish the task. And that's the hand I'm actually dealing with both of those every day with my job change. Like, I have to get a better understanding of the broad picture of everything so I know why I'm doing something. But I need so many little specific pieces of information that I just don't have. I need PowerPoints that I've not found yet. I need pages I've never seen before. I need links that I need to be able to share. Like, I'm still getting so much information together that if I don't take a moment to slow down, breathe, and do that task, to look and think and dive into it, I lose it. I just lose it all. And it stresses me the heck out.
Well, and that team, too, like, comments, if you take time to slow down in this moment while you're there to reflect, could also probably identify areas where, like, okay, beyond just stuff that you're talking about could be enhanced, automated, if we took time to reflect to look at that, could also reflect and go, okay, if this person is having this problem finding all of this information, we probably don't have this stored well enough or centralized well enough, or, like, put into, right, like, our team dealt with that when we started onboarding people, more in mass in a way that we hadn't in a while. We started to realize there was so much that just wasn't documented. And so, like, anybody who was coming in just kept having to be told random things. Even the new person I have on our team right now, he's a great guy. He keeps finding things even in our new version of documentation. It's like, oh yeah, we need something like that documented somewhere, because he's just having to remember it. And to his defense, poor guy, he's the guinea pig right now. Sometimes it's like he's finding stuff that we just haven't documented because all the rest of us on the team just knew it because we were there when we implemented it, right? Like, so, but then also reflecting to ask, is it the best way? And and like, this is hard for me sometimes too. Like, this person I'm talking about on my team right now actually is really good at this, at bringing up at times things of, like, should we do something differently? Right, and I'm very much sometimes the person who just kind of gets in the flow of what we're doing and is like, well, this is what we're doing it. Let's move forward. Yeah. Let's focus on something else. So I think that's also important to reflect and kind of look back. I think one thing I want to highlight in the reflecting and kind of focusing part of this is whether you're Will's kind of talking about this at a team level or leadership level, but even at an individual level, focusing allows us, I think, to look at. Really, I mean, I think it comes down to, for me, like, looking at, focusing on, am I doing the right things, right? The things that are worth my time, right? The things that I should be doing. And no matter what level you're at, I think that's important to ask, right? Where it's like, if you take time to step back and instead of just immediately try to fix a solution or do something, but you actually ask, what's the best way to solve this problem? And listen, I'm not the person who says we just throw the perfect solution every time, because one, the perfect solution doesn't exist. Two, sometimes you just need to do the best. But what I think I've started to find that's really helped me is to step back and look at, okay, what's the problem that I'm looking at? Reflect on that. And then reflect on, okay, what's the solution that I could pull off in the time that we care to pull it off? Right? And then figure out what's that best solution right now. Right, and that's where we move forward. And I think a lot of organizations, or people even individually, they don't want to do that. And so I've noticed a lot of times the type of person who we've all probably met, and we've all been at some point, one point or another, is, oh, that problem came into my email, I'm going to immediately respond to it, here's the solution, here's what I'm going to do, okay. And here's what I've noticed that often ends up resulting in, is just like somebody that's constantly back and forth with their email, that ends up then building, whether they know it or not, systems that aren't actually efficient at all. And then those systems create more work, and then that more work ends up overburdening you. And that's how you end up getting down to that road. Somewhere in between there, an Excel sheet pops up. Like, that's where, like,
you got your shot.
You know what I mean? Like, that's where, but am I wrong? I mean, come on. I mean, like, that's
no, there's always a spreadsheet.
That's where I've noticed that happens the most, is we just start doing, and then we don't actually stop to ask, is what we're doing the actual best use of our time? Or could it be used differently? And sometimes we don't always have control over our time. That's understandable. But there's a lot of things, even individually, any of you listening to this podcast, whether you're a teacher, whether you're working in technology, whether you're running a company, whether you're what you're doing, that you have control over your time. And so many of us, because we just keep doing, we end up doing more of the worst things. There's a book I always come back to. I've referenced it before on the podcast. It's called Do More Better. The title makes it sound like he's talking about making you just do more. But what he's actually talking about is slowing down, reflecting, creating. He talks a lot more about like personal systems for yourself, for productivity and all of that stuff. But what he's really talking about is like slowing down and reflecting on what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, so that you can reflect on what are you doing the most of the best thing that you can do.
Yeah.
If you're not, then you're moving too quickly and you're just doing whatever shows up. And this is one of the problems with like productivity culture that I am also a part of sometimes. Like this productivity culture that just says like, here's how you can pack as much as you want in your day. Right? Like you end up just doing more crap like until you start actually asking what's the most important. So anyway, that's been my experience. And I think that's, for me, that's what this means, is slowing down to look at this, right? So whether you're also training or teaching, sometimes that means slowing down so that your learners have the time to reflect on what they're learning so that they can actually engage with it and retain it and do it. Because, like, I was thinking about this the other day. I was talking with somebody, Will, about training, and I was like, how many people do we talk to? It's like, they're like, oh, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm doing it because I'm being told to do it, which is like they're doing like a 2-hour session on something, and then people are annoyed that people don't remember it. It's like, how many times do we have to say that that doesn't work? Right. Like, how many times do we have to say that reflection, slowing down, focusing in on something is actually how people learn? It's not by a 80-slide PowerPoint with bullet points and those fun animations that you came up with. Like, that's not gonna help you. Anyway, that's a different
the difference.
That's a different side of it. But
and we've got a little bit here to say, like, you know, how does this apply? You know, I think we've given some great direction to like the specific things we can do and why we think this is a generally good idea. But you know, this is about ed tech or tech. How does this apply to tech? And ironically, one of the ways that this changes over for me, like Josh has a few notes here about how we apply this in the work we're doing with the tech we're doing. But one of the first connections for me actually starts with an analog example. I'm really stuck on the analog this week.
Yeah. He really likes his joysticks. You know, that's
I just you know. I did a bachelor's degree to be a teacher, and I because of that I had a lot of teacher friends, not only in my teaching English program, but like, you know, in the elementary education school, and then I went on and did a lot of like contracting and support for elementary education long term. And I can tell you, I don't think I know a teacher who didn't, and you might know this yourself if you've ever had observations, right? I think every teacher is told at least once to slow down by an expert teacher, right? Like, it is a default to get into class and be like, all right, here are the 35 things we're going to do today. And just like start to rattle them all off as quickly as you possibly can. And I know I got it. I was told that a number of times. I know that plenty of my other teacher colleagues, like, and friends, were told, you know, definitely in those first couple of classes they ever did, like, oh, you know, your pace, your information's good or your presentation's good, but you need to slow down. What we can take from that lesson towards our tech use, because tech is innately fast, right? If you push a button on your keyboard, it responds on the screen. If you work in a learning management system, you click around stuff, like, it's all pretty snappy. So the expectation is the tool is not going to be the thing to slow you down, right? I connected this to the teaching because when I had the mentor who could speak into my experience from the outside, the mentor said, hey, Will, slow down, you're going too fast. Another potential feedback loop in an analog context is your student. Your student may raise a hand and go, Mr. Illingworth, right? You're going too fast. We do not have that feedback loop with our technology. I have one exception, and it's not a good thing. And that's why I'm circling the drain to circle the drain to circle the drain here. My learning management system has some kind of glitch, honestly, that only affects me.
Was this the thing you were telling me about the other day?
And when I'm using the system, I'll click around all the admin settings. I'll go to users, I'll go to groups, I'll go to core system, fire. And then I'll go to the notifications area. And if I click on anything in the notifications area. If I click add new notification, if I click edit an existing notification, if I click delete, if I click any button on the notification page, it brings up a pop-up that spins and loads for anywhere from 40 to 60 seconds every time. I've timed it. This has been happening to me for 2 years. Okay?
Oh, that's
and I didn't know, but I think I do, like, maybe like subconsciously I knew that that was actually a big part of this episode, because that's actually something that's been challenging me a lot recently. When I click that button, I take a breath, because I don't realize when I'm using my tools, maybe not literally, but when I'm using my tech tools, I'm holding my breath. I am internalizing the speed at which I'm able to do everything and get so many things done. I have 3 screens in front of me right now with 4 different applications visible. You know, there is so much I can do, and it's immediately at my fingertips, and none of them are going to stop me. But when my learning management system stops me and makes me not complete a notification so quickly, it does challenge me, and it stops me and makes me think about, what should I do with these 60 seconds? Because I know it's going to be 60 seconds every time. And yet, I kind of look forward to it. Now, I have submitted tickets because it's annoying and I want it to work faster, and then whatever. I am still a millennial, guys. I'm not perfect. But I think that there's something in our tech that we do not have. Feedback loops encouraging us to stop, or giving us times to stop, or encouraging us to pause. You know, if you use your cell phones, right, you can put like, these days there's digital wellness tools on them that you can do, like timers for apps and timers for screen time and all those kinds of reminders when to put it down and stuff. Like, those are great because none of the rest of our tools have those. But I think that that's something that if we were trying to be more human about our tech use, we could build those pauses into these tools. We could build those pauses into our own work. I don't know if you do it, but I would imagine in time blocking, it's appropriate to block 15-minute breaks. It's
absolutely. And it's funny.
It's
funny that you say, "Do you do it?" I try. No, my general practice is what I've been trying to do more and more is at least a block, like, so I don't put 15 minutes between each block. Some people do that, and it seems overkill to me. What I do is I try to find blocks that I don't put work into, right? That it's like an empty block. I try because I'm not good at it. I still end up putting too much.
Sounds like someone needs 15-minute blocks.
It sounds like maybe somebody needs 15-minute blocks. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see how that works. Actually, this is, maybe not a bad idea. But then 15 minutes, I don't like the 15 minutes because 15 minutes never seems like enough to me to actually take a break. Or fit things into, right? It's like, oh, cool, I have 15 minutes. What am I going to do? Walk back over to the coffee machine and get more coffee that I don't need?
Walk outside, maybe?
See, that seems like a lot, and
why would I do that?
In the words of Sheldon, but outside's so great, why do we keep trying to make inside amazing?
Better.
So anyway, no, so I think that's important, like building in those times. I think on the tech side, I think this comes back. We talked a little bit about this in our human tech series last fall, where we talked a little bit about slowing down to evaluate how you're using technology and how technology is impacting you, right? Mm-hmm. And this is, I'm not talking about doing the classic, like, I'm leaving Facebook post, I'm leaving TikTok. I still remember that skit. Do you remember, was this an SNL skit where they basically like reenacted in real life what it would be like if people left real life events like they leave social media, which is like some guy walks into a party and is like, I'm leaving the party forever, like, and he like just like walks out of the party, like, and everybody's okay, bye, I guess. Anyway, I don't know why I thought about that, but that's what I'm thinking about. No, I think slowing down allows us then also to reflect on the tech that we're using. Is it helpful? Is it being a positive influence on us, right? Like, the social media side stuff, this feels kitschy sometimes, but like, people do, I think, need to sit back and reflect, like, how much is those types of tools impacting your own thinking, your own how you're doing, your your own like feedback loops that you're getting into in social media, right? Like, are people stopping to reflect on what type of information am I getting out of social media, right? Am I always hearing the same thing? If you are, then like I think that's a problem, because you're just in your own feedback loop of what you want to hear, and then you end up thinking the whole rest of the world who doesn't think like you must be evil, horrible people. I mean that's my thought. I don't know if that ever happens in the real world.
No one does that.
No one does that ever.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but like, and then also from an organization, team, just work life stuff as an instructor, teacher, trainer, whoever you are in the environment you're in, I think we need to slow down and reflect on the technology that we're using and whether or not it's actually going to solve the problem you want to solve. And did it work, right? Like, I know so many teachers and trainers who throw tech at courses and things that they do because it looks cool and because it's fun at the time, and nobody ever actually asks, was it effective? Or how many meetings have we been in, Will, where like the thing is like, well, we'll just buy this tool, right? Like this is basically my entire life with Turnitin, which is like every 4 months somebody going, you know what would solve AI detection? Turnitin. Because every other institution who has it seems to have solved that problem. That was sarcasm. Sorry. Like, taking time to reflect on whether or not a technology is the right solution to the problem, or if there's something less complicated that could be. And I see this in a lot of different places. Like, I've had team members who are not like this as much. I'm not going to say who it is. I will say it's not you, Robin, so don't worry if you're listening to the podcast. It's not you. Who will get really into the details of like a certain solution and then not pause to reflect and ask, is that actually the best solution? Sure. And when you take time to just pause with that team member for literally 15 minutes, it ends up figuring out, no, that's a way overcomplicated version of a solution. The amount of times I've been in a meeting where that specific person has gone, we can't do that. And then one of the two of us who stopped to reflect for a little bit go, well, what if you did this? Oh, I guess we wouldn't need an entirely different tool, and like an entirely 5-scale automation system to do that. We probably could just do that in that one thing. Like, that's why slowing down to reflect, I think, is important. You start to find out what the real problem is, and you start to figure out what you should be doing in that moment. And I think that's why it's important in this tech world. I think we're seeing the impact of a lot of people who aren't doing this. Yeah. Like, we're seeing it in Silicon Valley. We're seeing it in government. We're seeing it in a lot of different places. People not slowing down to ask what are the right solutions. This whole like keep doing, break it and fix it later mentality, it's not working. We're ending up breaking a lot of things. And that's a comment, and I'm going to get on my soapbox for a second, but that's a comment to no matter where you stand in any political stance or technology stance, wherever it is, that like we need to start slowing down and reflecting on things and evaluating things and not just jumping to conclusions and solutions and tools and software to solve our problems, and actually start to look at that stuff, right? So I think just slowing down is a part of that. Now, luckily, there are some tools that can help with that, Will, right? I mean, there's...
Yes, indeed.
There's,
Actually, a little bit of today is just a couple of simple practices, right? We don't necessarily have this, and I think that's on brand. To slow down should not take a 5-point framework or a 6-point this or a 3-point
No, I think it takes a 13-point framework. Actually,
you get started. You let me know when you got them all.
Day one, you go, I will reflect today. Day 2. You start thinking about reflecting, and then day 3 you do a little bit of reflecting, and then you reflect on the reflecting that you did on day 4.
That's meta.
Yeah, it's really, I'm not even halfway.
Here's 2 very simple things you can do in your work day to start to practice this, and you may actually get some pushback from the culture at your colleagues, among your colleagues and stuff. But here's first one: schedule downtime. I actually do like Google Calendar has a thing where you can automatically set your meetings to be 25 minutes and 55 minutes long, or 50 minutes. Like, I forget what it is, but it's like if you go to schedule a 60-minute meeting, it automatically makes it 55 minutes. Let's say that.
Yeah.
I think a practice like that is actually really important to help folks be like, okay, I have those 5 minutes buffer time, like if the meeting needs to run over, but also at 55 minutes, we're done. And I am going to step away from my computer, maybe process the notes that I need, but go to the bathroom, get a drink of water. Like, how many times am I, I'm a fully remote worker, in meetings where people are like, oh, running just a few minutes late, I had to step away from the computer. Yeah, I get it. You needed to pee. Like, it's okay. We are humans. But we don't leave ourselves time for that. So schedule some downtime. The other thing that I think in the work context that might be helpful for this is starting meetings with review as a part of the agenda. And I don't, it doesn't necessarily need to be review or reflection, but like something at the beginning of the meeting that says, okay, it's not just social time. It's like, today, what are we going to accomplish? Set the goal of it. Agree to the goal of it. Like, this is a very simple thing where if you spend a little bit of time together before you even think about what you're trying to address or how to address it, think about what you're trying to address and take time to do that. So 2 things. No tech, nothing special. But the last idea I did have for today is just to download the Reflection app and use their journaling prompts. I love their journaling prompts because one of the things that's tough for this practice with me is like, I may not have the motivation to do something active with reflection, right? Like I said about the notification thing. I think I get the little pop-up, it starts to spin for 60 seconds, and I go, you know what? Let me just breathe. Well, it's not productive. It is helping my stress level. But, like, if you had something like journal prompts to help you process information or think things through, it is productive, reflective thought. The thing is, a lot of those journaling prompts can be very personal or interpersonal, so I think it'd be worth taking reflections prompts and use them, like think it through in like a work context or something. But just 3 simple things: schedule your downtime, add 5 minutes to your meeting that's specifically about reflecting, reviewing, planning, and download the Reflection app. Do it today. Try it out. It's free. We love Dave and the team over there and what they're doing with the tool. The tool's really easy to use. I use it. I love that I can keep my notes in it securely and all that stuff. I've always talked about that in past episodes. But just the big thing with this one today is use the journaling prompts to get yourself reflecting. It's not always easy to do it, so use those to get the first step up. Did you have any others? Did you come up with anything?
Don't do anything Will just said. I'm just joking.
Okay.
Just cut that out.
We're done.
No, I like the simple practices. I think it's finding, like you said, finding places to review, to reflect. Scheduling downtime, I think, is important, both for yourself and for teams. I think finding ways to do that. I think this is part of the reason, like our team uses the 37 signals model, where we add cooldowns in between projects. Where it's supposed to slow down pace a little bit. Does it always work? It's questionable, but it has in certain ways created downtime in between projects where you're not doing nearly as much work, right? So I think some of that stuff is helpful, and to reflect on things. We're actually really excited. We're just building into our new design process like required retrospective meetings at the end of each project. So like, we're super excited about stuff like that. So like, those are areas where like in a scalable solution, our team's trying to practice some of this stuff. But for yourself, like, find time to reflect. I try to find time to reflect after meetings a lot more now, where I can like I hate taking notes at the meeting. Like, that's always been an annoyance to me, and I still do sometimes, like stuff that pops up in the meetings. But I've started to find it to be more helpful to kind of take those important key things, like whatever tasks or like a key thing I don't want to forget. But then like to kind of just like summarize the meeting in writing after I'm done for myself has been super helpful. And I know there are AI solutions to do that for you, but I've actually come to not using those because I actually like the practice of taking like 10 minutes myself to think about it. And so that's been super helpful. So like that's one way I've been trying to do that a little bit more in between meetings and things.
That falls in line with like brain science and like pedagogical theory on learning and retention. Like taking a moment to re-summarize after the effect can be very good for memory and retention and all that. So good
and
for
it, like and I've been seeing this on the education side on like we have a model for a lot of our courses that has reflect at the end of each week, and it's not really been used that intentionally as it could be. And like a good example of this was just looking at a course a designer made that actually did this really well, where it was like the beginning, they would start a journal at the beginning of the week, but that journal was connected to the reflection, and at the journal it was more about like noting questions that they would have throughout the week, and then they were supposed to note in that journal as they went through the week if those questions got answered. And then they were supposed to reflect on kind of like those questions that were answered, but then also like another question that was posed to them in the beginning of the week. They're supposed to reflect on their answer at the beginning of the week versus the end of the week. And they did that a lot throughout the course. And I think that's another cool practice where like they're slowing down to say, you know what, we're not going to just jam as much content as we can at this learner. We're going to actually take time to reflect on them, reflecting on their growth, so that they can also kind of internalize that learning. And I think that applies to anything you're doing out there, whether you're making official courses for higher education, or you're in Will's situation where you're making customer education, or you're making trainings for your employees, or whatever that may be, or you're making trainings for kids on random things, whatever that may be. I don't know why I put it that way. I just couldn't come up with what I was going to say. That type of reflection I think is important. So again, a tool to help you is Reflection App, which will provide a link. There's already a link on our main website if you can check it out, where we are affiliates with Reflection App, so you can go check that out. But you can also check out the link on our episode page. We will give you for that. So,
well, that's awesome. This has been 194. Next week will be episode 195. Weird that it works like that. We're going to continue, with more fun thoughts about AI, as we usually do. But we're going to specifically look at how it could help us evaluate growth, right? And that's not just going to be like learning, but maybe personal, but also learning.
But also trees. We're going to talk specifically about botany. We're going to get really into trees.
Into the tree, does the tree get better or not? Yeah.
Fun fact, I learned that AI is being used in farming to track like details about crops and things that humans can't track on their own. Perfect. I didn't think about that. So that's what you learn in a Jimmy John's while waiting for your food to be delivered to you.
I didn't know that was the place to learn. Glad it is.
Jimmy John's, they feed you mentally and physically.
Oh,
Jimmy John's, they feed you mentally and physically.
Hashtag not a sponsor. Folks, you know the drill. Yeah. Go find us on the YouTubes, the Twitters, the LinkedIns, the Instas,
all
whatever.
All of those are just one program, but you can go find us there.
at High Tech Podcast or at High Tech Pod. Those are our social handles. Oh, we're so tired. We're so done. If you would like to be on the podcast, if you want to challenge things that we're saying, if you want to add to them, we love to have conversations. That's why we do this. Inbox at hightechpod.us. Send us an email. We'd love to connect with you and get started. Head over to our website at hightechpod.us for every single one of our episodes. There's an episode page with the links to things like Reflection App, etc. But to everything that's always in the episodes, we want to make sure that's available to you as a resource you can share with others. That's it. That's a wrap on another week of the High Tech Podcast. Empowering minds.
Embracing tech.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Buckle up, let's ride the wave. Future's calling.